Hey guys, so today we're going to be covering our next section in this data analysis chapter. I think it's going to look really familiar to you guys. Most of it you already probably know. We're going to be talking about mean, median, and mode today, as well as a couple other little vocabulary type terms that go along with those. So first of all, just to refresh your memory, the mean is the same as the average of a set of data, and we find that by adding all of our numbers together and then dividing by the number of numbers that we have. Okay, so this is best whenever there is not an outlier, which if you don't remember what that is, we'll talk about it in just a minute. Then we have medians, which is the middle number whenever our data values are arranged in order from least to greatest. And this is the best to use to describe our data when an outlier does exist. And then we have the mode, which is the number or the item that occurs the most often. So we typically like to use this whenever our items that we're looking at, our data, is not measured in numbers, or when we're choosing the most popular. So for instance, if you went around and asked people what their favorite color was, and most of them said blue, that would be your mode, and that would probably be the best way to describe your data since you don't have numbers, so you can't find an average or a median. All right, so then outliers, again, if you don't remember, those are numbers that are way bigger or way smaller than the other numbers in your data set. They usually really stick out. You can tell when you have an outlier. And then the range, we're going to deal with a decent amount today. That is the difference between the greatest data value that you have and your smallest data value. So if I had 5 and 5 was my smallest and 15 was my largest, then my range would be 10 because 15 minus 5 is 10. So it's very easy to find, but it basically just describes how spread out your values are. So instead of going through all of this and then having to have you guys wait around on me to punch things into my calculator, I decided to go ahead and write things down because, again, I think that you guys pretty much know most of this stuff. There's a few things that I want to kind of clarify. But first of all, they're asking us to find the mean, median, and mode, and then figure out which one would best describe the data. So on the left-hand side, we're given 6 numbers, and looking at this right away, I noticed that I definitely have an outlier here, because that one is way smaller than the rest of my numbers. It's not even close to being in the same range as them. So I do have an outlier, and I need to be aware of that before I get started. It doesn't affect anything that we calculate. It's just going to affect which one of these might be the best to describe our data. So with our mean, I just added all those numbers together, and then you divide it by the number of numbers that you have there, which we have 6 numbers. So when I add the numbers together, I get 157, and when I divide it, I'm going to divide it by 6, and our mean ends up being 26.17. And that's okay. Sometimes your mean is not going to be an exact number. In fact, a lot of the times it will be that way. So then we want to find our median. And remember, our median is the middle number when they're arranged in order. So I rearranged all my numbers in order from least to greatest. And now I'm going to be eliminating some of them so that I can find the middle number. So I can cross off one number on each side, another number on each side, but I don't have a distinct middle number. I have a 30 and a 31. So when you have an even number of values like this, a lot of times you're not going to have a clear middle number. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to average the 2 numbers in the middle. For this one, it's pretty simple. We're just going to add the 30 and the 31 and we divide by 2. You can probably do that in your head and you get 30.5. That's the number right in the middle of those 2 numbers. And that is our median. Now, other times it might not be exactly like that, so make sure that you do add them together and then divide by 2. And then our mode is the number that occurs most often, or the one that repeats the most, because you might have more than one that repeat. In this case, that's 33, because I have 2 33s in my data, nothing else repeats, so that is going to be my mode. Now, the last thing that they ask us to do is to figure out which one of these would best describe our data. Well, since we have this outlier, which is 1 here, I can't use the mean because it's probably not accurate. The mode, I'm describing numbers here, so that's not particularly that helpful either. So in this case, because we have an outlier, the median is actually going to be the one that best describes the data. Sorry, that's a weird looking S. Let me rewrite that. All right, so best describes the data. All right, now the next one, same deal. I found my mean by adding together all my numbers and then dividing by the number of numbers that we have. In this case, we had 5, so we get 43.8, and we divide that by 5, and we get 8.76. Now to find the median this time, I still have to arrange my numbers in order from least to greatest, but then I'm going to start crossing things off again. And this time I do have a true median in my data, which is the 8.8. Okay, so my median is 8.8 this time. And also, none of my numbers repeat, so that means that we don't have a mode. And there are times when you won't have one, and that's perfectly okay. So we're just not going to mess with the mode. So looking back at our data values, from the start, there really wasn't an outlier. Everything is pretty close together. They're all basically between like 8 and 9.5, so they're pretty similar numbers. So we don't have an outlier here. In which case, if we don't have an outlier, then our mean is going to be the most reliable value for describing our data set. So our mean is going to best describe our data this time. All right, so that's kind of just a rundown of all those terms one more time. Like I said, you've done all of these things before, so I didn't want to spend a ton of time talking about that because the next part might not look as familiar. This time we're going to be just dealing with mean. We're still going to set it up the same way, but this time they give us 3 values of the 4, and they give us the mean, and they want us to figure out what that other value has to be. So, in this case, we're still going to set it up the same way. We're still going to add all of these numbers in our data set together. We're going to divide by as many numbers as there are, and there are 4 numbers. We're going to count x as a number and set it equal to whatever the mean is. And this looks really scary, but it's really not bad. So the first thing that you can do is go ahead and multiply both sides by 4. That's probably what I would start with, so that you can get rid of the fraction. So when I multiply both sides by 4, I'm going to be left with everything on top. And then I'm going to multiply 87 times 4, in which case we get 348. Now I'm going to add together these numbers over here on the left. And so I'm going to do 80 plus 93 plus 91. And we get 264. So I have 264 plus x equals 348. Then we subtract over the 264, or whatever number you get in your problems when you do this. And we end up with x equals 348 minus 264 gives you 84. So our other number has to be 84. And if we look back at our data, that would fit in with the numbers that we have there. So it makes sense. You always want to double check and make sure that the number that you got makes sense. So for the next one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do all of these numbers added together. This time there's 5, so we're going to do all of these on top added together, divided by 5, and that's equal to 1,150. So same deal. Let's go ahead and start with multiplying. So we're going to multiply both sides by 5 to get rid of the fraction here on the left. Sorry, you're going to have to, actually, I don't need to do that yet. I'm going to do 1280 plus 1125. All right, so one thing that I do want to mention is that you could go ahead and add those numbers together all in this step. whenever you're multiplying the other side times that number, you don't have to do it as two separate steps. I'm just trying to keep it consistent with the way that we did the last problem. So now I'm going to go back, at least in my case, and add the rest of those together. So 1280 plus 1125 plus 965 plus 1210. And that gives me 4,580 plus x equals 5,750. All right, and so we get x equals, let me subtract here, and we get 1,170. So this one is a little bit bigger than the other ones, but that kind of again makes sense because my mean is way larger, so there probably is an outlier here. All right, so there's the basics of these, and so if you need to find a missing value, you're going to look at these two examples. Now on the next page, we're going to keep working. For this one, we're just going to find the range and the mean and compare the results. So we're talking about stocks here of some type of company, and we're going to go ahead and find, let's just go ahead and do the mean first. So I have stock C, and so the mean, I'm going to add up all those numbers. Looks like I have 5 of them, so I'm going to divide by 5. So 7 plus 4 plus 3 plus 6 plus 1. All right, so we get 21 divided by 5, which is definitely going to give us a decimal here. We get 4.2. All right, so there's our mean, and our range is just the difference between our biggest number and our smallest number. So our biggest number here is 7, and our smallest number is 1. So we're going to do 7 minus 1, so our range is 6. We're going to go do the same thing for stock D. Okay, so we have the mean, which is 24 plus 15 plus 2 plus 10 plus 5 divided by 5. All right. Okay, so we get 56 and we divide that by 5. And we end up getting 11.2. The last thing we're going to do with this is find the range. So the biggest number that we had here was 24, and the smallest was 2. So we'll do 24 minus 2. Sorry, for some reason that's writing strange. So our range is 22. All right, so if we're going to compare these, we might say something like, stock D's average is larger, so that means that their cost per stock or something, I'm not sure what these numbers are measuring, but their numbers were probably larger to begin with, or maybe they have an outlier, something to that effect. The range of stock D was also bigger, which does tell us that there probably is an outlier. In fact, those data values are pretty spread out in general, so that could attribute to some of that. Since the range was smaller and the average was smaller, then maybe stock C, we could reason that those numbers are closer together, which is true, and that would make our range smaller. So I'm not really sure what they're looking for there, but those are just some examples of things that you might say. All right, so for the next one, or the next two, we're going to be using the same set of data, but we're going to be doing a couple different things to it. So we're going to find the mean, median, mode, and the range after we perform the given operation. So we're going to take this set of data here, and let me see, we're going to take these numbers, and then we're going to add 4 to all of them. So we're going to make a new set, Oh, I don't want highlighter. Sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to add 4 to all of them. So I'm going to get 8 plus 4, which is 12. 2 plus 4 is 6. 5 plus 4 is 9. 7 plus 4 is 11. 0 plus 4 is 4. 6 plus 4 is 10. And 5 plus 4 is 9. So this is my new set of data. Alrighty. So we're good to start calculating our numbers. So again, for mean, we're going to add those all up, and then we're going to divide by the number that there are. So there are, looks like 7 in this case. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to add up these numbers right here. I'm going to try not to rewrite all of this, otherwise it's going to get really sloppy. All right, so we get 61. We're going to divide that by 7. And we get 8.7. So there is our mean. Now to find our median, remember our numbers have to be in order. So I'm actually just going to go up here to the top and rewrite them. So we're going to start with 6, then we have 9, 9, 10, 11. Oh, sorry, I missed the 4. That'll go out front. So 4, 6, 9, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that is all 7. So if we're trying to find the median, we can cross off all of our numbers and we get to 9. So our median here is going to be 9. Our mode is the one that shows up the most, which is also 9, because it repeats twice. Okay, and then we're going to find our range. So our range, again, is subtracting the smallest number from the biggest number. Our biggest number here is 12, and our smallest is 2. Or sorry, 4. Just looking at the wrong set of data. So 12 and 4. So when we subtract 12 minus 4, we do get 8. And the whole purpose of this was to make you guys see that the range would be the same if we added or subtracted everything. So it doesn't change. Now the next one, it will change. So we're going to multiply all of our original numbers by 3. And I'm going to go ahead and put them in order as we go here. So 0 times 3 is 0. Then we're going to do 2 times 3, which is 6. 5 times 3 is 15, so I'll have 15, 15. Then we have, so we did 0, 2, 5, 5, 6. 6 times 3 is 18. 7 times 3 is 21. 8 times 3 is 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we got them all. All right, so we're going to add all these up, and then we're going to divide by 7 again. So this time our number is definitely going to change because these numbers are a lot bigger. Okay, so we're at 96 for their sum, and then we divide by 7. Hopefully you guys are okay with me not writing all of that out again, but I am doing the exact same thing. I'm just adding all those numbers together to get the 96, and then dividing it by the number of numbers that there are. All right, so now we're going to calculate the median. And since I already put these in order, then that's just going to make it a little bit faster. So my order is up here. I'm just going to underline until we get to the middle. So we do still have a true middle because we have an odd number of data values. So our median this time is 15. Our mode is the one that shows up most often. In this case, the one that repeated was the 15. Again, still repeating twice. Okay, and then our range is going to be our biggest number minus our smallest number. And since we have these in order, we're going to do the, let me grab a different color here. We're going to do the 24 minus 0. 24 minus 0 is, oh, sorry, not 0, I don't know, is 24. Alright, so 24 minus 0, I was thinking 24 times 0. 24 minus 0 is still 24. Okay, so our range, as you can see, definitely changed from 8 to 24 this time. It changes if we have an operation that multiplies or divides our original data set. And as you can see, our numbers are going to be different because we're dealing with different numbers, but our median and mode were the same both times for this set of data, and our average still is pretty accurate here. So that is our last set of new information that we are going to be covering, and again, a lot of it's review, so hopefully you guys feel okay with this. If you have any questions, make sure that you reach out and ask me. Also, I have been emailing, calling, everything that I can do for those of you who have not been turning things in. So and that probably doesn't apply to you if you're watching this, but if you are missing anything or if you have not finished any assignments, we are almost out of days. I need you to be turning those things in. I will give you credit for them, but you have to put in the effort to do them. So please keep that in mind. If there's anything you need to do, get that done. All right. Well, other than that, like I said, if you have questions about anything, please reach out to me. I can do phone calls, I can do video conferencing, I can, just email and do remind that way. Whatever helps you to best succeed, I'm happy to do. All right, well, I hope you guys have a great day. Again, let me know if you need anything. Otherwise, I will talk to you soon.